Every American conspiracy the government actually admits happened. When people hear the word conspiracy, they usually think of wild theories, internet nonsense, or stories that fall apart under basic scrutiny. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Some of the most disturbing conspiracy theories in American history turned out to be absolutely real. And not only real, but confirmed by the U.S. government itself. Let's get right into it. MKULTRA, the CIA's mind control experiment. In the 1950s and 60s, the CIA launched Project MKULTRA, a program designed to test whether drugs, hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and psychological torture could be used to control the human mind. Yes, mind control. That was the goal. The program was led by Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist who believed LSD might unlock a way to manipulate or even program behavior. So the CIA experimented on volunteers, on prisoners, on soldiers, and, in some cases, on people who had no idea what was happening. Some test subjects suffered long-term psychological damage, paranoia, hallucinations, memory loss, and, in some cases, total mental breakdowns. Others reported that the experiments permanently altered their sense of identity, leaving them unable to function normally for the rest of their lives. One man, Frank Olson, a military scientist, died after being secretly dosed with LSD by CIA colleagues. And the worst part, his death was covered up for decades. MKULTRA only came to light in the 1970s, when internal documents were uncovered during congressional investigations. President Ford publicly apologized to Olson's family. The CIA admitted MKULTRA happened. And yes, it was exactly as bad as it sounds. The Tuskegee syphilis experiments. For 40 years, from 1932 to 1972, the U.S. Public Health Service ran what it called the Tuskegee Study of Untreated Syphilis in the Negro Male. The name alone tells you how coldly racist the entire project was. Hundreds of African-American men with syphilis were told they were receiving free medical care. Only, they weren't receiving care at all. Quite the opposite, actually. Researchers simply watched the disease progress and intentionally withheld treatment, even after penicillin became the standard cure, just to see what happened. Many men died. Some went blind. Wives were infected. Even children were born with congenital syphilis. The government didn't admit this voluntarily. A whistleblower forced it into the open. The story hit the press, and the national outrage that followed shut the study down. In 1997, President Clinton formally apologized on behalf of the United States. As far as conspiracies go, this one doesn't require imagination. It happened exactly as described. COINTELPRO, the FBI's secret war on American citizens. COINTELPRO stands for Counterintelligence Program, but the name doesn't capture what it really was. From the 1950s to the 1970s, the FBI used illegal surveillance, forged documents, infiltration, blackmail, and intimidation to neutralize groups it considered subversive. Targets included civil rights leaders, anti-war activists, feminists, socialists, and even journalists. Martin Luther King Jr. was spied on relentlessly. At one point, the FBI mailed him an anonymous letter urging him to kill himself. These weren't rogue agents. These activities were documented, authorized, and run out of FBI headquarters. The campaign shattered lives. Careers were ruined, reputations were deliberately destroyed, and some organizations collapsed under the pressure of manufactured internal distrust. The climate of fear it created made activists paranoid of one another, unsure who was genuine and who was an FBI plant, which was exactly the outcome the Bureau wanted. COINTELPRO wasn't exposed by Congress or the media originally. It was exposed when a group of activists literally broke into an FBI office and mailed stolen documents to reporters. Once again, when the investigation began and the pressure was on, the FBI admitted it. Operation Northwoods, the proposed false flag plan. This is one most people still don't believe when they first hear it. In 1962, the Joint Chiefs of Staff drafted a proposal called Operation Northwoods. The plan outlined a series of fake Cuban attacks that the U.S. would stage to justify invading Cuba. That is right, staged attacks against themselves to attack Cuba. These proposed actions included blowing up an unmanned American aircraft and blaming Cuba, simulating terrorist attacks on U.S. soil, creating a fake casualty list, and possibly more. To be clear, this plan was never actually carried out, but it reached the Secretary of Defense's desk. President Kennedy rejected it immediately. Decades later, the documents were declassified and published by the National Security Archive. Northwoods is a rare example where the conspiracy was planned, not executed, but the planning alone is enough to raise eyebrows. The Gulf of Tonkin. The incident that wasn't. American involvement in the Vietnam War escalated dramatically after the Gulf of Tonkin incident in 1964. The story at the time: 2 U.S. Navy destroyers were attacked by North Vietnamese torpedo boats. The truth, as documents and tapes later revealed, the second attack never happened. Top officials knew the reports were unreliable at best, but still used the incident to justify sweeping military action. President Johnson privately admitted, "For all I know, our Navy was shooting at whales." The Gulf of Tonkin resolution set the stage for one of the deadliest conflicts in American history, and it was built on an event the government later acknowledged was misrepresented to the public and blown out of proportion. Operation Midnight Climax. The CIA Brothel Project. If MKULTRA sounds wild, its side project might be even more absurd. Under Operation Midnight Climax, the CIA set up a series of disguised safe houses, mostly in San Francisco, later in New York, designed to look like ordinary brothels. Sex workers were paid by the CIA to bring men inside, where they were secretly dosed with LSD. Meanwhile, CIA operatives sat behind one-way glass, taking notes as the unsuspecting men unraveled under the drug's effects. The idea was to observe unpredictable human behavior in an atmosphere where the victims would be too ashamed or embarrassed to report anything to the police. The safe houses were also wired with microphones and cameras, making them some of the earliest examples of government-run surveillance apartments. The experiments were crude, unscientific, and often sadistic. Subjects experienced panic attacks, temporary psychosis, violent disorientation, and in some cases lingering psychological distress, none of which was treated, documented properly, or even acknowledged. The program grew so loose and unregulated that some CIA officers later admitted it turned into a playground for operatives who were more interested in voyeurism and personal amusement than research. The agent who ran the San Francisco safe house, George White, famously wrote in a letter, "I was a very minor missionary, actually a heretic, but I toiled wholeheartedly in the vineyards because it was fun, fun, fun." Operation Midnight Climax was never designed with ethics, science, or human safety in mind, and once it was exposed, the CIA had no choice but to acknowledge it during the same investigations that uncovered MKULTRA. The Iran-Contra Affair. In the 1980s, the U.S. government publicly claimed it did not negotiate with terrorists and did not help fund the Contra rebels in Nicaragua. Privately, members of the Reagan administration were doing both. Here's what happened. The U.S. secretly sold weapons to Iran, funneled the profits to Contra forces, and violated Congress's ban on aiding that group. When the program was revealed, officials initially denied everything. Eventually, they admitted their involvement. The consequences were as follows. Several were convicted. Some convictions were later overturned or pardoned. This isn't a fringe conspiracy, it's in every U.S. history textbook, because the government itself confirmed it, and no major consequences came of it. The NSA's mass surveillance. Before Edward Snowden's leaks in 2013, mass government surveillance was considered a fringe conspiracy theory. People joked about the government listening to your calls, and most assumed it was an exaggeration. Snowden's leaked documents proved otherwise. The NSA had been collecting phone metadata from millions of Americans. internet traffic from major tech companies, emails, messages, and global communications, all authorized under secret court rulings not widely known to the public. After the revelations, the government didn't deny it. They admitted it, defended it, and then Congress eventually modified the law to support their actions. What used to sound like paranoid thinking is now accepted as historical fact. Project Shamrock and Project Minaret. From the 1940s to the 1970s, the NSA ran two secret programs. Under Shamrock, the NSA worked directly with major telegraph companies, quietly receiving daily batches of Americans' private communications, something the public had absolutely no idea was happening. Minaret went even further, creating secret watch lists of U.S. citizens whose calls and messages were flagged and routed to intelligence agencies, and when these programs were exposed, they became some of the clearest examples of why oversight was urgently needed. Both were warrantless, both violated the Constitution, and both were quietly acknowledged after the Church Committee exposed them. Why these matter? Here's the key point. None of this content is meant to twist. Knowing these conspiracies were real doesn't mean every theory is real. What it does mean is that power can be abused, and secrecy can hide wrongdoing. History isn't comfortable. It's not supposed to be. But understanding what happened, what the government eventually admitted happened, helps us recognize the importance of transparency today. If you want more videos like this, diving into hidden history, declassified operations, and the stories the government eventually had to admit, make sure to comment and let me know. Thanks for watching.